Hello. Welcome to Lost Tape Records Podcast.
Champagne, Carol's gonna turn into dust and all same. A silver surface worn into rust.
Hello, my name is Trey, and this is the Lost Tape Records Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, or listening, whatever. So today I have a special treat. We are going to be doing an interview with Tyler Bisson. I think it's pronounced Bisson. Let me double check that. Let me do the speak function on my computer.
Bisson.
Bisson. Okay, you hear that?
Bisson.
Okay, it's Tyler Bisson. Yeah, we just chatted with Tyler for a little bit about his company. He runs a company called Audio Geography Studios. He does basically lathe cut records, all made manually by hand, each one for bands, labels, basically anyone that can't afford to get vinyl done because vinyl is so expensive. Yeah, that's mainly Tyler's forte, is he runs his lathe company. Also, he's in a couple cool bands. He's in a band called Nightwitch. It's a cool hardcore punk band from Florida. He's also does Tragwag, which is his personal solo project. Yeah, we just chatted for a bit. I've known Tyler for a bit. We've never really talked on the phone or in person, just through the internet. He did one lathe cut record for us back in the day for Lost Tape for the Rebel Scum Post Nothing split. But yeah, I don't really know how else to set this up. Just gonna play it. Hope you enjoy it. I think it's a little long, not too long. But yeah, here's a track called Drop Dead from Nightwitch, Tyler's band. And then you have to go into the website, punch it in, pay them, and then they would mail it out to somebody. But anyway, sorry, I'm like ranting. But anyways,
no, that's good. That's good.
Are you where you set up all your lathe record cutting stuff? Is that in like your house, or do you have another place? I remember watching the video you did. Like, it was, I don't know if it was for like you did it or someone did a whole like video where they like interviewed and like you showed them.
I set that up.
You did that. Okay.
Yeah. My friends shot the video, but it was like something that I kind of scripted for me, because my biggest problem early on was like people didn't know what went into making a lathe cut record. Like they had no idea.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, the best way is just to like physically show them.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and they're like, oh, now I get why, it takes a little longer because you do each one in real time.
Yeah.
So, and like it's only me in the video. I'm doing all the process.
Yeah, it's just you. Do you ever have anyone help you though? Like when you do certain big runs?
Back in Connecticut, I did, but just for the marble tapes because that's so labor intensive.
Dude, I wanted to ask you about that because
those are nuts. But yeah, since I moved to Florida, I've had the studio in my apartment, which was 3 years ago now.
Okay.
So. Before that, I rented space from lacquer cutting engineer Dietrich Schoenemann back in Connecticut. And I essentially just had a closet. It was like 10 by 10 and just had the lathes in there and just worked. But it was cool. Yeah. And it's how I got going, so.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I made a little list of like just talking points because I'm Fox News over here.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. I wanted to start out. I wanted to talk to you about your bands. I don't know too much about your band specifically. I've checked out your one band. It's called Nightwitch, right?
Yeah. I played drums in Nightwitch.
Yeah, I listened to some of that. Just kind of like a hardcore punk style. Which I listened to some of it. I think you posted it on Facebook a while back, like something, and I like listened to it a little bit. But I have like such ADD that like I'll be like, oh, this is cool, and then I'll just like forget and move on. And and of course, when you're on Facebook, I'm just like flipping around and I can't pay attention. But
just going all over the place.
you know what's funny is your band's called Nightwitch, and there's a band here in Portland. They're my friends. They're a band called Deadwitch. And also, there's another band called, like, like the word witch is pretty.
Closet witch, witch bender.
Witch bender. But yeah, I just noticed that witch was like a kind of a staple, and they all kind of fell in like a hardcore punk kind of like genre.
Right, they do.
Or
they
death
all
metal.
Do, yeah. Right.
But if you haven't.
And so
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I joined that band when I moved to Florida. They'd been a band since 2013.
Okay.
And then the drummer was going to grad school and just didn't have the time to like actively be in it anymore. And it's funny, he's like one of my best friends in town and we're wicked similar. So when I'd show up to shows, like for the first few shows, bands from out of town were like, "Oh, hey, it's nice to see you again." And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm the new guy." And they're like, "You're exactly like Nate, the old guy."
Yeah.
So it was great. It was really great. I just kind of like, just kind of filled that
fit in.
vacancy real quick and like with no problem.
Well, that's good.
So
yeah, I'm trying to think of the time I joined. It's different from starting a band with people, instead of just joining a band. It's always, I've felt that there's a band I joined once that, it was more so like the front person, like, this is my band. You're this, you're this, member in the band, and it's basically my show, which, I always feel like, depending on if you're like down with it or if it's like kind of like a paid gig job, like a band, then it'd be like one thing. But I've been in one or two bands where I joined and I wasn't really in control of like most of the aspects of it. So those bands, I always found that I'd be like a little less interested in, not less interested, but just not as 100% down.
Yeah.
So, and then you also you have your own solo. It's called Tragwag?
Yeah, Tragwag. Yeah. Yeah. It stands for that really awesome guy with a guitar, which is a terribly long and inefficient name that I came up with when I was 15 years old. It's like sort of like a who's on first kind of joke.
Yeah.
Like, oh, have you heard of that really awesome guy with the guitar? Oh, which one? Oh, that really awesome guy with the guitar.
That guy. No, that's cool. I've noticed you. You're pretty prolific. I'm gonna use a big word. Pretty prolific with playing a lot of shows. I've noticed under that name, and then also I think I've seen you guys are pretty active as far as Nightwitch too, which is really really cool. Have you ever done like a full tour under Tragwag?
You mean full band or
just
like
just like a full like? Have you even done a full like U.S. tour with any kind of act playing wise?
Yeah. Well, my first tour. I've done pretty consistent East Coast tours. But my first tour ever was like a 2-week full U.S. tour, which was a bad idea. I had a bandmate in Tragwag at the time. It was 2009, and we just kind of hoofed it. We were like 18, 19. I must have just turned 19, and we just kind of just drove like 10 hours a day, some days 16 or 18 hours, because we were nuts and like didn't know what we were doing at all. I only had 2 weeks off from my job at the time, so I just said, let's do it. We made it all the way to like a suburb of LA, and like we played the kickoff show at my house in Connecticut where I grew up, and we made it all the way to like a suburb of LA, all the way down to like Orlando, Florida, intense. And all the way back in 2 weeks, which was just nuts. So that was like a real thing. But after that, pretty much every break from school, I toured with either Tragwag or this band I played drums in college called Atlas the Atom Smasher. That was like 2011, 2012. Then after college, I toured Tragwag again, pretty much, consistently once or twice a year, which has been super cool. just keeping it to a week. Like up in Connecticut, I did one to the Midwest. I did a like extended weekend to Canada. And then since being in Florida, it's mostly just been, I did a Tragwag run up the East Coast again. And then a week in Florida with my friend Dakota, who I just did a split with. And then it was only a few weeks ago, we did like a week in, I can't name this region, the southeast of the U.S., like within 2 or 3 hours of Atlanta.
Okay.
Like almost to like Asheville and the mountains there, you know, but not like the coast. So that was cool.
Yeah, for sure.
And wicked different.
Yeah, that's yeah, wicked. That's fucking wicked. No,
that's my New England coming out, man. That's it.
It's your new, yeah. So wait, so where are you from? Are you from Connecticut, or where are you originally from?
Yeah. I was born in Connecticut, and I grew up there, and I went to college in Massachusetts, just like 2 hours away in Lowell, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And then I moved back to Connecticut to start my internship that eventually became audio geography. So.
Okay. Wait, internship for... Oh, at like the lacquer place that...
Yeah.
Okay, so you were interning at a lacquer... Because I remember you do a lot of like pre-cutting lacquers for people when they get like records done through audio geography. But so you were learning how to do that specific, just doing lacquers?
That was at Dietrich's place in Connecticut. And he essentially bought the lathe cut stuff and told me my internship was like how to use it.
Okay.
But that was through college. Like technically it was a class.
Oh, okay.
Like credit for college, and had to have certain circumstances and like certain hours a week and all that stuff.
Okay. So the machines that you use, you found those... I remember in your video you did, I think you explained it, but I can't remember right now. You found those yourself and got them, or did the internship, like they kind of helped you find these?
Dietrich, yeah. Dietrich found the first one. It was for sale through a guy who did actual lathe teching for the pro units, like the Neumann disc cutting system that Dietrich was using. This was his kind of tech guy. So he had one of the sort of lathe cut for plastic ones for sale, which he didn't know or care a whole lot about. He was like, "This is out of my range, but I have it." So, and Dietrich bought it at the time for a great price, and was like, "Okay, I mean, figure out how to use it if you can." And I was like, "I'm down for this challenge. Like, this is my exact thing I want to be doing." So I just figured out how to use it, and within 3 months of that, I took my first order like in August, I think it was.
Yeah.
So.
Dude, that's
and then eventually, I found the same exact machine in the tiny town that I was doing my internship in Bethel, Connecticut, outside of Danbury, and it was like a friend of a friend. We had the same birthday, so we were all hanging out because we had the same birthday.
The hell?
And
that's kind of
it was nuts. And I was like, "Oh, I make records. Like I'm trying to make records for a living." And she was like, "My grandpa has a recording studio, and this was his house. Do you want to go look at it?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Hell yeah.
And there it sat, the same lathe that I was using like
Holy
2
shit.
miles away.
Was it in better condition or like worse condition than the one you have?
Oh, it was much worse condition, like not really working, and sort of had to piece stuff together. Because the other one we bought was like at least a little bit gone over by that first tech. So I bought that almost the whole basement of stuff from that person, which was cool. Bunch of stuff in there I still have, and like used some of the rest of it to upgrade that lathe. And eventually, after a year or two of having and working those Presto lathes, that's the Presto 6N.
Yeah.
I sold one of those to get a vinyl recorder. It's a stereo lathe. So, and I just kept doing that. Now I have 2 vinyl recorders and 1 of the Presto.
Vinyl. Wait. So what's is vinyl recorder is like actually cutting to vinyl, or wait? So can you explain that?
Oh yeah, no, it's just the name of the stereo lathe.
Okay.
It still cuts to plastic, but it has a stereo cutting head, and it's like more of a complete system.
So the older ones were only mono then?
Yeah.
So those are only okay. So the lathe machines you have, they're only mono, and then so the newer ones, are they like newer, like modern machines, or are they from like the
Technically,
70s?
yeah.
Or
No,
do you know when those ones were made?
Yeah, they were made, as far as I know, in like the early to mid 2000s. And they're still technically made today, but with some hoops. The guy who made them, not to slam him, but it's like, it's a process to get one from him.
Really?
And I didn't go through that process. I bought them from people, not from the creator.
Okay.
So I don't have support from the creator of the vinyl recorder.
You mean as far as if, like, did he have a warranty or something? Like, if something fucks up, you can...
No.
Or you mean support, like...
He made it so he was the only guy you could buy cutting needles and blanks from. But I've never bought cutting needles and blanks from him. I buy from a third-party company in France.
Yeah.
Because I don't have support from the owner, because the owner didn't train me on it.
Oh, is he
knew about cutting.
Is he not willing to like sell? Have you talked to him before? Or is he just willing to not sell you?
I've never even tried, because he just ignores messages from people who haven't gone through the training.
Training for what? Like, he's like, all right, I have to sit there and show you how to use my machine.
Yep.
Before you can.
But I already knew about cutting, because I'd been cutting for a year and a half at that point, before I got the first one, and I knew how to work it essentially.
Yeah.
I knew what everything did and what it was for, and I mean, there's some specific calibrations, but I have cutting experience, so it wasn't a problem at all to figure out how it worked and sort of calibrate it to my workflow. Okay. But he sells it, generally mostly to DJs and people making their own electronic music who are just going to cut their own dubs and go to the club and play them like every week. That kind of deal. That's kind of what I presume he intended it to be used for, not necessarily for somebody to run their livelihood doing a business on it.
Well, you think he'd be excited? He'd be like, "Oh, this is really cool. You're like doing lathe cuts for all these bands." No, he's just like, "Yeah, it's for like DJs." I'm like, that's even such a small niche market as far as just
because
specific DJs with that actually are spinning their turntables, like actual record players. Dude, no one uses record players anymore. They all use CDJs.
Right, and he doesn't really want somebody to copy his design. So if you know about cutting and you're somebody who's knowledgeable, like, you might just copy his design.
Oh, hey, so I have your record lathe thing, but here, I found these tweaks to make it work better. And he's like, you think he would want to like be like, "Oh, okay, I'll work with you," instead of like, "You know what, fuck you,
no,
don't talk to me."
He just ignores you and cuts you off. Like,
well, you know what you should do, Tyler? You should like mod out the one that he has, and then get someone to like make a patent, and then you can make a better one, and then he'll just be really pissed.
It's possible. Nobody has really succeeded since this guy, essentially.
Making lathes, like lathes. Lathes? Is that a right term? Making lathes? It's almost like the same, if you like cut wood and shit, it's like a lathe. Like
it is the same exact word.
So it's like the same concept. Do you know, so he's the only one who makes
there's some, to be fair, there's some people like working at it. They have prototypes and that kind of thing, but they're not necessarily for sale publicly yet. So.
Yeah. How many other people do you know that are doing lathe cut records besides? I know that there's Little Elephant that makes their own kind of like actual, and those are like, I think, high quality, high def, like actual vinyl.
They use the same stereo cutting machine. Well, there's technically is their cutting machine is custom made, but it's the same principle as I call them hi-fi cuts.
Hi-fi, hi-fi.
It just means stereo cut with a diamond needle and actually a cut groove. So their lathe is custom, but it's essentially the same idea as the vinyl recorder.
Okay. But I know
it's cut into plastic, not technically pressed PVC, which is what I would call vinyl.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the plastic of some polycarbonate or softer polycarbonate blend. Just the same as I do with the hi-fi cuts, yeah.
For sure. I don't know if I've ever seen in person the hi-fi cut ones, and I know the lower ones were like the clear acrylic kind of plastic ones that you would use, but I just remember the
polycarbonate, yeah.
Yeah, I should know more of the facts behind all the little. I mean, like, I understand everything as far as how everything works. I just don't know the names or how to describe certain things. But I just remember a little elephant. Yeah, they like take photos of it, and it was like really dark. And in my head, I was assuming it would be like, I only thought there was like the clear, like you just cut on clear, like polycarbonate, and then. But then I was like, oh, did they actually get like slabs of like vinyl and then they were cutting? But it's just the same stuff, but is it just dyed like dark? Or is it just a black,
essentially,
a black
there is black polycarbonate. I just, for my purposes, and because historically I was only getting clear, I just keep clear as my standard. Yeah. It does help differentiate too, like for people who are making lathe cuts, that they're always clear.
Yeah.
I offer colors now. I offer black, white, red, green, and blue because my supplier offers black, white, red, green, and blue, but they're an upcharge from clear. So
when you get all the slabs for making lathe cut records, I noticed before you had where you can just do square like cuts, or you can actually like I went through that one time. It was a couple of years ago. I got those for a band called Rebel Scum and Post Nothing, I think. I don't even remember. Yeah, I got those records made, and then you screen printed the back. And I remember when I got them and I pulled it out, and I was like, oh shit, it almost looks just like a normal black 7-inch because the back, it was all screened, but it's clear. But it almost looked like, with the design, it looked like an actual like 7-inch, and it was pretty awesome. It was it smelled pretty intense. I mean, obviously
pretty hefty,
yeah. I actually got some other records screened on, and when I got them, I pulled them out, and I was like, oh, like it was just they're pretty fresh. They were pretty fresh.
Yeah, it hurts.
Still.
Yeah.
It took a while for them to like kind of,
air out.
Smell to go away. Yeah.
You want to know the main difference? How you can always tell a lathe cut from a pressed record?
I think I know what the main difference is, but please tell me.
A pressed record is always tapered, like the center label area is thick and the edge is thick, and in the middle it is a thinner diameter. So you can always tell when a record's been pressed. Yeah, because the edge and the center are different thickness than the label area. Yeah, and you can see. Where the stamper imparts in the label. Lathe cut, always flat the whole way across.
Always flat, yeah.
Always flat. That's how you know.
Yeah,
Even if it has a label, it's flat.
Yeah, I was actually surprised when I got those lathe cuts from you, and I put one on my record player. Honestly, I was like, oh, this doesn't sound like any different than a record. Besides, it just sounded like a little dirty. And I was honestly surprised how good it sounded just for like a clear piece of plastic being cut into. And so
it
honestly,
really shouldn't work like that,
It shouldn't. But I mean, well, the thing is, I have really nice like big main speakers with a receiver, and I have an EQ and stuff, so I can actually fuck with it. I mean, it's not very fancy. I don't know. They're just like some front, left, and right speakers from like a surround sound system, but they just sound decent because there's a big enough like speaker in there and a little tweeter. And then I have a sub hooked up, so it but besides that point, I honestly was like, dude, this is like really cool. I was actually really like the first time I even saw that you could get lathe cut records, or I think when I first found your company, I was like super pumped because, like I've done a handful of vinyl releases. I've only done one where I actually went through and set up the whole vinyl project. All the other ones were just with other labels, me jumping on, me just going, cool, here's like $200 for my copies, or,
Yeah.
It's kind of I mean, honestly, there's a band called Champagne Colored Cars that I helped put out their EP on a single-sided, like a 12-inch, but it's just front side to back screen printed.
Yeah,
they turned out really. I don't know if you saw those photos when I was posting them. They turned out really nice.
Those always do. That's a great look.
Yeah, I got Chris from Square Vop to screen them, and
absolute pro. Shout out to Chris.
I picked shout out to Chris. I picked the worst time because it took like fucking forever to get him. No, not his fault because he was in the middle of moving to his new facility. So
yeah,
I just
right.
After getting the order in and everything, and I was just like, it took so long. I was like, fuck. But he did a really good job though, and they're beautiful. But so the one issue we had is we did the vinyl release. It was very frustrating getting this record made because we went through what A to Z Media, just because they literally were like the only one had the lowest quote. I literally asked every single plant. I've asked every single person. They were like the cheapest one for like what we wanted. So
yeah.
So we went through them, and I know Chris has his opinions. He hates Pirate Press. He hates because they're all just like brokers that outsource to like Czech Republic and some, which I understand his point. Like, you should keep your money in America and try to like support local companies, but
if you can,
it's like, dude, like, okay, like if you're trying to get a project done and musical is like fucking almost a year backed up, like you can't wait. Like no one else is gonna sit there and just be like, okay, well, I have a band that wants to put an album out, I guess I'll just wait another year.
6 months.
I'll wait another year.
6 months at one point. Like, oh boy,
6 months.
It's not anymore. To be fair, it's much better now because there's so many more plants in the U.S. now.
They've been trying to open
more.
up. What do you think about Jack White? Like his Third Man record plant that he started. I remember everyone being really
cool.
stoked, and I remember talking to people. I was like, dude, that's super cool. And then when it actually came to, it's like super high fucking priced, and which I think he wanted to get it down. He said like he wanted to get it down to like affordable enough to where people can like go through their plant, but also he marketed his whole like record plant as if it was going to be like for the people, but I'm like, okay, you're doing like represses of MC5 and like all this other bullshit. I'm like, which is cool, but
it's hard to kind of separate his label from that plant because like the label does a lot of reissues or like found historical recordings, which is great. I love that they do that, and they keep the plant busy with mostly that stuff. The plant actually, Dietrich, who I had rented space from, was an early proponent and supporter and I believe a sales rep for Viral Manufacturing, which is the company that makes the Warm Tone record press, which is why there's so many new plants opening in the U.S. And Third Man is one of a Viral pressing plant. It's I haven't checked up on it in a while, but it's essentially a record press that has it's automatic and it runs on electric power instead of steam. Oh wow, yeah. So the footprint is way less, and you can run it like with your phone or with an iPad as well as manually. It can be run much simpler. The cycle times are faster. The quality is more consistent. Just because it's a new production record press.
Yeah, it's just newer, and they've probably manufactured it to be a little bit more streamlined, I'm assuming. Because
instead of using like a 50 and 60-year-old record press where the parts aren't made anymore and you're just kind of like putting Band-Aids on it and hobbling it along. Yeah. There are still places that press great records with those presses, but the Viral has like changed it where almost, if you can afford a Viral press, you can set it up like sort of in a garage. It doesn't need to be industrial zoned as it used to be, for steam heat and all that. Yeah. It's a different world,
I mean, it looked awesome. You watched that video, I'm assuming that Jack White did. He did the tour. I mean, it literally, I want to go check it out. Like not my frustration, but when I talked to someone about how my only beef was it seemed like he was marketing off the fact that it was going to be like, hey, hella cool plant for like, you know, all these punk kids may get records made somewhat, you know.
They still got to pay bills. It's like a huge place.
But yeah,
really
I mean,
of it.
maybe down the road once they have a lot of overhead. He had all those machines like built custom and all. It's like,
yeah, they're custom colorways and like it's public information. Like you can look up the viral press is 150 grand for the viral press.
Yeah.
And they bought like 10 or 20, I think. They went in like they, you know, they could have gotten, I don't know, like 15 or instead of 20. I'm not sure exactly how many they have, but you know,
I guess
they went in and they knew what they were doing. They wanted to build a full scale pressing plant.
Yeah.
But
Nothing wrong with that.
I think of it like this way, you know, I try to, and I know Chris Reject does his business the same way. LVAC,
LVAC, or
yeah, they do the trash ink thing where it's like you get a super good deal.
That's a good deal.
I do the same thing where I have a package that's 27-inch squares on the lo-fi, and in the US it's $85, includes shipping. Just like, you know, your very bare bones package, like as most basic as you can get it. And it's, you know, just to keep it affordable for people who are like, it's less than $100, you know? If you're a musician and you're a band and you have something you want to make, you can leave with records to sell for less than $100.
Yeah,
like,
no, for sure. I do notice
trying to keep that.
I had a friend who wanted to get like a personal solo project made, and he wanted to get like, you know, I mean, vinyl's too expensive, but it was more of just like a project he just wanted to put out, and like was thinking about getting hi-fi lathes done. But like still, like even doing a certain amount of those, he couldn't justify getting them made because it was like too much money for them at the moment. But I did notice that the lathe cut records are awesome, but per cost, probably plus labor and everything, they are pretty high per unit, based off of
more per piece
because it's so manual. It's so manual of a process to make it. Totally understandable. I just found that like trying to sell, unless it's like a specific thing that people will like. If it was just like, oh, like, hey, we got like 10 copies made of our album. Like, you know, people are used to paying a certain price for like, oh, like a record, and they're like, hey, so like pay like way more for this and then they're like, well, it's not.
You'd be surprised.
Well, it's not. Yeah,
I mean,
well, so what I was going to get at is this is my workaround for that is that the 7-inch lathes you made for that one release, I figured instead of just selling that because per cost it was like $7 to $9 or something like that. Instead of charging a bunch of money just for that, I did 7-inch lathe cut record, and it comes with a cassette, and you pay like $10 to $12, you know, depending on how much the cost was. So like I would bundle it, so if you get it, it just comes with a cassette with the cost. So, and I could justify charging the upcharge on the cost of getting it made. But
yeah, you'd be surprised. Like when I started, I have not really raised my prices since I started, which was
I did notice
7
that, yeah.
years ago.
No, you've been pretty consistent, which is pretty awesome. Which you almost probably could up it a little bit with inflation and stuff. But
the pressed records have been going up and up and up. So like you almost can't, depending on the quantity. Like if you're pressing a 7-inch record nowadays,
it's like 1,000. It's like over 1,000 just for like 300. Right.
It really is.
I remember,
like you're gonna be at least like $4 or $5, and you can get a lathe cut for $5 or $6 depending on on what you're picking. Like it's coming back around.
Yeah. Do you think that?
And like, you know, when you're going in the record store, you're seeing a new 7-inch sell at the record store for $10 to $12.
Yeah, they have jumped. I think that is also just from I'm not
buying those.
The vinyl boom from the last. I love how there's like different bigger outlets or news. They're like, oh, like vinyl revival. Everyone, and I'm like, yo, I feel like all these emo and these punk kids are the one who brought this back, and then everyone's trying to like, oh, cool, like the vinyl boom. Yeah, which is. I was just talking to my my girlfriend the other day that we were talking about, because it was record store day the other day, and I have my own opinions, and I don't have the most favorable view of record store day, just from certain things that I've studied and from talking to people, and especially other labels who all literally just like get frustrated because I don't know so much now, because I feel like a lot of labels I knew and a lot of people just like don't do anything anymore, and or it's too much. Yeah, it's too much money to just like, because a lot of these labels that you work with, I know that I do, like even me, it's just kind of like a side thing I've been doing for a long time. I don't do it as a primary source of like income. I only do this just because I wanted to put out my own music, and I was like, fuck it. Like I saw all these other labels. I don't know if you remember, I've told someone this before. Do you remember Driftwood Records? Did you ever work with Driftwood?
Yeah. I did a lot with them.
So, I remember that is what kind of kickstarted me wanting to do a label, because I used to talk to Dandy and work with Dandy, and that went down. I don't have to get into that whole backstory. I've already talked to someone about that on the podcast, but that's basically what I was like. Fuck it, I can do this. Like, I'll just start a label and like put out cassettes. And one of my first.
That's the best part about it. Like anyone can do it, and that's why
It's not that hard. I think that I was naive at first going into it, because I had more money just sitting around, because like at that time I was living with my parents, and like I had a lot more money to like blow on just getting tapes, and I used to make a lot of my own tapes too, but then that just was such dude, I literally was like, I made a cassette release a while back. I dubbed some tapes for someone, and I had like flashbacks of like, I was like, dude, I fucking hate making tapes. Like, I really don't like doing it anymore. Like, there's people that do it and they love it. I'm like, I just don't have time.
It's a lot of work.
I don't have enough time, man. Like, especially now, I'm like, I gotta fucking work. I got other shit to do. I don't have time to sit here and dub 100 fucking cassettes, So, that's why I started going through A to Z Audio, which A to Z Audio is great. They've fucked up like one or two of my tapes though. Like it was an accident. Like they made it right though. Like they gave money back or they like literally just like didn't charge me for certain things. So, shit happens. Shit happens when you're, they're pretty busy. I feel like they're pretty busy. Their turnarounds are really fast though, which I like.
Right. And I've been doing tapes too, but I sort of just run them in the back. I have real-time tape decks, not a duplicator. Yeah. And I used to do 4 or 5 at once. I've lost a few decks, so I'm down to 3 right now.
Really? You should get, there's a guy here that runs a place called Saturn Duplication, and I think it's John. I'm blanking on his name. I met him once in hopes that maybe he'd want to like do a podcast or something, but he was like, nah. I was like, oh, okay. But he had a fucking tower. It was like 6-foot tower that had like, I want to say 10 to 12 cassette duplicators, and then he had a master, and they were all slaved to the master.
Right. They have that in Music Hall, too. When I visited Music Hall, they had just a wall of probably 20.
Yo, like, they literally could go, oh, how many? You need 500 cassettes? They're all boop, boop, boop. Cool. Give me like 20 minutes, they'll be done. You're like, oh, hell yeah.
It's incredible.
It's super cool.
And it sounds much better with the real-time decks. It sounds so good.
I've dubbed even, to be honest, it wasn't too bad. I would do like 16 times like duplication on my cassettes. Yeah. But I did notice when I had a band, I gave them their tapes, and they're like, it sounds like it's like going fast, and I'm like, oh, like the audio, like there was a little bit of a time,
just a few percent.
Yeah, it was like a percent time. They're like, it's like a little faster. Like this doesn't sound right. I'm like, it sounds fine to me.
Oh no, yeah, I've been there, definitely.
So what? Let me get back on some of my notes that I have. What kind of bands have you worked with besides I know a handful of ones that you've posted about that you've done stuff for, but what would you say is like your biggest band you think that you've done a project for, and or like some of the like bands that you were like, holy shit, I'm doing lathe cuts for them? Is there any bands like that?
Oh, definitely. Let me just kind of go down the list. Probably the most momentous, because I was waiting for something to happen in this camp, and it did, and it came to me, was the Hotelier Goodness 7-inch.
Okay.
Like, everyone loved their record, Home Like No Place.
Oh, yeah, I love that album.
Yeah, and it's incredible, and everyone was like, what's next for them? What's next for them?
Yeah.
And the next thing they did was a lathe cut through me. And I was like,
For Good, that's the album with all the naked people on it, right?
Yeah, but it was before the album came out. It was a B-side, like an outtake from those sessions.
So they had some songs,
awesome,
and they got them cut through you just as like
just one. Yeah, it was originally going to be a double groove record with the acoustic song and then a noise track secondarily, but it just ended up being the one acoustic song. I did like 300-ish, maybe
you did
325. I did so many. I can sing that song in my sleep still.
Shit, you did 300 lathe cuts for
I did 300 because they've sold all of them. It went really well. It was super basic. I dropped them off in New York City at their show too. It was wild.
Did you get in for free?
It was wild. Yeah, oh yeah. Of course they got me in. Yeah. I was just sitting there with like a box full of records and just like, here you go, friends.
Did you?
Did
you get to hang out with them?
Basically. Yeah, I had met them just from being in Massachusetts in the punk scene.
Oh yeah, because they're from East Mass, right?
Yeah,
or no,
from
West Mass,
West
Mass. Yeah, not East Mass. Sorry.
My roommate had grown up in Worcester around that area with them, so I knew them that way.
Yeah.
The second biggest one, as far as numbers that I think I did, was either one of the World Is records.
Yeah, I remember those ones.
Or the Self Defense Family, which was also like 200 to 300 copies.
Oh, I think you did. Which one was that?
It was again outtakes. It was literally a one-sided 2-minute.
Was that the one for Dandy? The like.
It was.
Oh
yeah,
shit! It was that one.
Was,
yeah, I remember that.
It was like one of their outtakes and then their 10-second song or whatever it was.
Yeah.
That was probably the second most I ever did. At one time, it was so many.
Yeah. How long did you do it? Like, you're like, cool. You like sat in your where you do your lathes. You're like, cool. I'm gonna sit here for like 10 hours and just see how many I can do.
Oh god, dude. Yeah, it was like 8 to 10 hour days, like for a full week to get those done. Pretty much.
But I mean, it was worth it, right?
It was worth
like,
it. I mean, many people have come across those, and they still talk to me about those, and it was fun.
Yeah.
And I grew up with at the time he was the drummer, and now I think he plays bass. Alan Huck. I grew up with him
in self-defense.
Yeah. So most of these people I knew, like, just from being around and growing up, and it was cool. I mean, some of the other stuff that like I was surprised to get. I did 1 year for Record Store Day. I did a single for Plow United, which is a Delaware, Pennsylvania punk band that was active in the 90s. And they sort of this was their comeback record, and it was incredible. Mm-hmm. And I'd never like sat and listened to them, but I was like, this is the best. And I loved it. It was for Jumpstart Records at the time. That one was surprising and super cool, and I saw them at Fest the next year, and I was like, this is one of my favorite bands now.
Yeah.
That was incredible.
Dude, Fest. I want to go to Fest so bad.
You should make it.
I know. I'm hoping this next year. I never have money, dude. I'm so broke. Well, it's like...
It used to be a much bigger deal, obviously, coming from Connecticut, driving 24 hours. But now it's like, living in Florida, I live 2 hours away from Gainesville.
Oh, yeah, so you're closer. Where exactly do you live again? In
Tallahassee.
You live in Tallahassee. Okay.
Yeah. So it's
Tallahassee.
Like not a problem. Yeah, that old Mountain Goats record.
Tallahassee, dude. I'm just kidding. All right.
Tallahassee is the preferred.
Yeah, I don't know anything about.
It's where T-Pain's from. It's where T-Pain
really?
is from.
Oh,
it's
shit.
where Creed is from.
Isn't there a NASCAR track there?
It's where. No, that's Talladega.
Oh, Talladega.
Alabama.
Oh, Talladega. Yeah, I don't know anything about Florida besides. Florida just seems like a crazy fucking place. You know what's funny is there's a band called Ghost Cat from down in your Florida town that they're from West Palm, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
Down
Yeah.
Key West maybe, or down at the tip. But yeah, John, who was the singer, he just moved here like probably 6 months ago, and we've been hanging out a bunch. And we're eventually trying to start a new band here, which I found it really funny when he came and visited and then he moved out here. I was like, I literally talked to you online and then like I put out your tape for like your band and then we're just like friends and now you live here and we hang out all the time.
Now it's real. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the best.
Yeah, it's super cool though. But he fucking hated Florida. He's so happy now. He's not in Florida. No, I mean not to talk. I'm not talking shit. I mean I kind of am talking shit, but
it's true. It's different when you grow up here. Like people that grow up here and see everything that happens. Like I'm still just like acclimating to how life is like outside of the cities in Florida, you know? So Tallahassee's very much like a haven for a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Well, as long as there's cool shit going on. Also, you got Gainesville. It's pretty dope, I've heard. So, I mean, besides just Fest, you know, I've heard Gainesville is a pretty dope place.
It is. It truly is.
But yeah, I'll try to come out to Fest this next year. Did you say, or no, was it at Fest or where were you at where you were doing like lathe cut records? Like,
yeah. Okay, so I'd cut records for Record Store Day at this place in Brooklyn called Human Head for 2 years. I think that was 2014, 2015.
For 2 years straight, you were there every day cutting records?
Yeah, I wish. That was fun because that was people just brought something they wanted to get cut. And they just paid me, and I cut it, and they got their own stuff. I met... Oh, I'm probably going to massacre this band name. I feel so terrible.
It's all right. I massacre everything when I try to talk.
The So Glows? That band?
The So Glows? Soul Glow?
Yeah. No, not Soul Glow, but the So Glows, like kind of an indie garagey band from Brooklyn. They ran a venue, but...
An indie garage band from Brooklyn?
Yeah, believe it.
What?
Believe it. The So Glows, and that dude brought in a tape of him and his brothers. They were a family band when they were 9 and 10 years old.
Oh wow!
And I cut that.
That's funny.
That's what I cut at Record Store Day.
Was it garbage music though?
No, it was great. It was great.
Was it like actual recorded, or is it just like them with like a tape?
It was like maybe a Porta Studio. I don't know, but it was good.
Yeah, that's cool.
Good.
That's super cool.
I cut that, and then I did Square of Opposition Fest.
Oh yeah,
with Square of Opposition, Chris Reject again.
We're
Chris. Shouting the hell out of him.
Yeah.
And that was incredible. We did sort of like lathe cut versions of a bunch of stuff that never got released or stuff that was out of print. Essentially, it was like a menu. You would come up and say, I want a record.
Yeah.
And I would cut the record and then send it to you later.
Yeah.
Well, I'd cut it physically there and then get it to people later during the fest, like the next day or whatever. So
that's super.
It was
cool.
Awesome. It was really, really fun. I'd always wanted to do that. So it was cool to get that realized.
Yeah. No, that's sick. Anyways, I'll probably just cut it now. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, thanks
no problem,
so much for doing this podcast, man. It was really nice talking. It was actually nice it's not actually meeting in person, but this is the closest thing I can do when you're in Florida.
Truly nice, man. Yeah, I really hope we get to like hang out and
dude.
get together.
If you ever come out to Portland,
incredible.
I live in Portland, Oregon. I don't know if you've ever been to Portland. You should come visit. If you do visit, you can stay with me. I'm in my second bedroom with my girlfriend's. What's this called? Hentai posters all over the wall. Titties all over my wall over here.
There it is, dude. Yeah.
She's really into anime. But yeah, if you ever come to Portland,
really let you know.
Yeah, bro.
Carol's gonna
That'd be
turn
awesome.
into
All right, cool. Well, thanks, man.
dust and all same. A silver surface worn into rust from long nights in a neighborhood.
All right, so that's it. That's the podcast we did with Tyler. It was a lot of fun. Tyler's a great person, and I really respect him. I respect what he does for the music community, and I just think that he's a great person. Anyways, yep, that's it for this podcast. Go ahead and follow Tyler on all his media websites for audio geography. Follow his bands, Tragwag, Nightwitch. I'm going to link all those down in the description for the podcast, whatever you're listening to it. We have our Podomatic, which is our host site. We're on iTunes. We're going to be on Spotify as soon as I put this episode up. But yeah, check it out. Check out Lost State Records, Bandcamp. Check out our store. We got some cool stuff. Some cool bands that we put out. Cool. Yeah, well, thanks for listening. I'll talk to you later. Adios.